What if the strangest science fiction comedy ever made was actually John Carpenter's desperate attempt to avoid film school debt? That dark star's bizarre alien was created from a beach ball and spray paint, and this micro-budget masterpiece launched careers while nearly destroying friendships forever? The film school project that conquered Hollywood dark star began as John Carpenter's USC Film School thesis project with a budget so microscopic that even calling it low budget was generous. What film students and industry professionals rarely understand is that Carpenter and producer Dan O'Bannon created this space epic for less money than most people spend on a used car. The original short film cost exactly $1,000 to produce, funded entirely by Carpenter's student loans and O'Bannon's part-time job wages. The duo shot on weekends using borrowed equipment and fellow students as unpaid crew members. What started as a simple class assignment became an obsession that consumed 2 years of their lives. The transformation from student project to feature film required resourcefulness that bordered on criminal ingenuity. Carpenter and O'Bannon convinced equipment rental houses to loan them gear by claiming they were shooting commercial projects. They filmed in friends' garages, empty warehouses, and abandoned buildings, creating alien spacecraft interiors from industrial locations that cost nothing to access. The most remarkable aspect was their decision to expand a 45-minute short into a feature-length film without additional funding. They literally stretched existing footage through creative editing, added new scenes shot months apart, and created a coherent narrative from material filmed in completely different circumstances. This guerrilla approach to filmmaking would influence independent cinema for decades. The beach ball alien.
Idiot!
That launched a franchise dark star's most memorable creature was born from pure financial desperation and accidental genius that would inspire Alien's xenomorph design. What audiences never suspected was that the film's terrifying beach ball monster emerged from Dan O'Bannon's frustrated attempt to create something scary with literally no money for special effects. O'Bannon spent his last $20 on an oversized beach ball, orange spray paint, and rubber claws from a novelty store. The alien design process involved trial and error with household materials until something resembling a creature emerged. The webbed feet came from swim fins, the teeth were carved foam, and the creature's movements were achieved through pure physical performance. The genius lay in O'Bannon's decision to treat this ridiculous creation seriously within the film's context. Instead of acknowledging the creature's absurdity, the actors responded with genuine fear and professionalism. This commitment to treating nonsense as reality became Dark Star's defining comedic principle. The beach ball alien's unexpected effectiveness convinced O'Bannon that creature design was his calling. His experience creating something terrifying from nothing directly inspired his later work on Alien, where unlimited budgets allowed him to realize the nightmarish visions that Dark Star's constraints had forced him to suggest rather than show. The progression from beach ball to xenomorph represents one of cinema's most remarkable creative evolutions. The cast of non-actors who became legends.
Damn it!
Dark Star's performances came from complete amateurs who had never acted professionally, creating authentic portrayals of boredom and isolation that trained actors might have struggled to achieve. What made these performances so convincing was that the cast members were genuinely experiencing the tedium and frustration their characters felt. Brian Norrell, who played Doolittle, was actually a USC film student with no acting experience beyond high school theater. His deadpan delivery and existential exhaustion came from months of unpaid work on a project that seemed increasingly unlikely to succeed. Norrell's authentic weariness made his character's philosophical conversations with the bomb feel genuinely profound. Dre Pahich and Cal Cooneyholm were recruited from Carpenter's circle of friends rather than any casting process. Their lack of professional training created naturalistic performances that avoided the artificial quality that often plagued low-budget science fiction. Their genuine camaraderie and occasional irritation with each other enhanced the crew's lived-in dynamic. The most inspired casting choice was using Dan O'Bannon himself as the voice of the intelligent bomb. O'Bannon's philosophical discussions with Doolittle reflected his own existential questions about the film's purpose and his career prospects. The bomb's logical but absurd reasoning mirrored O'Bannon's attempts to rationalize spending years on a project that might never find an audience. The special effects revolution born from poverty.
I have received the signal to prepare for a drop.
Dark Star's space effects were created using techniques so innovative that Industrial Light and Magic later adopted similar approaches for Star Wars. What professional effects artists didn't realize was that financial limitations forced Carpenter and O'Bannon to develop solutions that were actually superior to expensive alternatives. The spacecraft models were built from plastic model kits, cardboard, and found objects that cost under $50 total. O'Bannon discovered that cheap materials often looked more realistic under dramatic lighting than expensive professional props. The Dark Star ship itself was constructed from multiple airplane model kits combined with industrial tubing and electronic components salvaged from broken equipment. The zero-gravity effects required pure physical ingenuity rather than expensive wire work or optical tricks. Actors performed in carefully choreographed sequences that used camera angles and precise timing to suggest weightlessness. These practical solutions created more convincing zero gravity than many films with massive budgets. The most revolutionary technique involved using household chemicals to create explosion effects that looked spectacular on camera while costing virtually nothing. O'Bannon experimented with different combinations of common materials until he achieved pyrotechnic effects that rivaled professional work. These discoveries would influence his later collaboration with Ridley Scott on Alien's practical effects. The philosophical comedy that predicted Kubrick. Dark Star's blend of existential philosophy and absurdist humor anticipated themes that Stanley Kubrick would explore in 2001: A Space Odyssey, despite being made by college students with no professional experience. The film's treatment of technology, isolation, and human purpose proved remarkably sophisticated for such humble origins. The conversations between Doolittle and the intelligent bomb represent genuine philosophical inquiry disguised as comedy. These scenes explore questions about consciousness, purpose, and rational thought that would later appear in serious science fiction films with much larger budgets. The bomb's logical progression towards self-destruction mirrors humanity's tendency to rationalize destructive behavior. Carpenter and O'Bannon were influenced by European art films and existentialist literature rather than mainstream science fiction. Their approach to space travel as mundane routine rather than heroic adventure predated similar treatments in later films. The crew's boredom and institutional frustration reflected contemporary anxieties about corporate employment and technological alienation. The film's deadpan humor emerged from treating absurd situations with complete seriousness, a technique that would influence comedy filmmaking for decades. Dark Star proved that philosophical depth could coexist with entertainment value, inspiring filmmakers to embed serious themes within genre frameworks that attracted broader audiences. The production disasters that created accidents of genius. Dark Star's production was plagued by equipment failures, scheduling conflicts, and budget crises that accidentally created some of the film's most memorable moments. What appeared to be deliberate artistic choices were often desperate solutions to problems that threatened to end production entirely. The film's distinctive lighting came from using whatever illumination was available rather than professional equipment. Fluorescent office lights, household lamps, and flashlights created the uneven, realistic lighting that made the spacecraft feel authentically functional rather than cinematically dramatic. This accidental realism influenced later science fiction films that sought similar authenticity. Sound recording problems forced extensive post-production work that enhanced the film's otherworldly atmosphere. The necessity of replacing dialogue and adding sound effects in post created opportunities for creative audio design that wouldn't have existed with proper production sound. These limitations pushed Carpenter to develop the electronic music skills that would define his later career. The most famous accident involved the surf sequence, which was filmed because the crew happened to be near a beach when they needed additional footage. This seemingly random inclusion became one of the film's most beloved moments, demonstrating how creative filmmakers can transform accidents into artistic statements. The sequence's absurdist humor perfectly captured the film's spirit of finding meaning in meaninglessness. The distribution nightmare that launched careers. Getting Dark Star into theaters required promotional strategies so unconventional that they created new models for independent film distribution. What Carpenter and O'Bannon discovered was that traditional marketing approaches were completely useless for a film that defied every commercial category. The film's first theatrical release was a disaster because distributors marketed it as either serious science fiction or conventional comedy, missing its unique identity entirely. Audiences expecting Star Trek adventures or slapstick humor were confused by Dark Star's philosophical deadpan approach. Initial reviews were mixed because critics couldn't classify the film within existing genres. The breakthrough came through midnight movie screenings and college campus tours where audiences could appreciate the film's student origins and countercultural sensibility. Word-of-mouth promotion among film students and science fiction fans created a cult following that sustained the film for years. Dark Star's eventual success proved that unconventional films could find audiences through alternative distribution channels. This model inspired countless independent filmmakers to bypass traditional studio systems and connect directly with audiences who appreciated experimental approaches. The film's cult status demonstrated that commercial failure didn't prevent artistic influence or long-term cultural impact. The legacy that transformed science fiction forever. Dark Star's influence on science fiction cinema extends far beyond its modest origins, establishing templates for space-based comedy, independent filmmaking, and philosophical genre entertainment that continue inspiring creators today. The film proved that big ideas didn't require big budgets if executed with sufficient creativity and commitment. The film's treatment of space travel as routine work rather than heroic adventure influenced countless later productions from Alien to Red Dwarf. Dark Star demonstrated that ordinary people doing mundane jobs in extraordinary circumstances could generate more authentic drama than superhuman heroes facing cosmic threats. John Carpenter's electronic score, created from necessity rather than choice, established a minimalist approach to film music that would define his career and influence electronic music production. The synthesizer techniques developed for Dark Star became signatures of 1980s horror and science fiction soundtracks. Most significantly, Dark Star's success proved that film school graduates could create professional quality entertainment without industry connections or major financial backing. The film inspired generations of independent filmmakers to attempt ambitious projects with minimal resources, leading to breakthrough works that might never have existed within traditional studio systems. The collaboration between Carpenter and O'Bannon, though it ended in personal conflict, demonstrated how creative partnerships could achieve results impossible for individual artists. Their combined talents created something neither could have accomplished alone, establishing collaboration models that continue influencing filmmaking partnerships throughout the industry. These revelations expose Dark Star as far more than a quirky student film. It's a blueprint for independent creativity that proves artistic vision can triumph over financial limitations. From its beachball alien to philosophical bomb conversations, every element emerged from resourcefulness rather than resources, creating accidental innovations that influenced major studio productions. The next time you experience Carpenter's bizarre space odyssey, you'll recognize the desperate creativity behind every improvised effect, and appreciate how financial constraints forced innovations that expensive productions might never discover. You'll understand how student filmmakers created techniques that professionals later adopted. If these underground secrets fascinated you, subscribe and enable notifications for more explorations of micro-budget masterpieces that changed cinema forever. What other low-budget films do you believe contain innovations that influenced major productions? Share your discoveries in the comments and recommend this analysis to aspiring filmmakers who need inspiration for creating something from nothing.